Welcome. I think we're starting to let people into our Decatur Parents Network speaker series. So if you all can just be patient a moment, it usually takes a couple minutes for everybody to enter. And we have had close to 100 people register, about 90 people. There might be some of you who have registered last minute on here. I'm not so sure, but we are expecting a full house outside of the fact that some people have lost power, trees down. For those of you who are familiar with Terry Moore, she is behind the scenes tonight and she is operating off of a generator. So we will it's 7 o'clock exactly. I'm going to give us just about 2 minutes to see who else can join us this evening. I will just go over a little housekeeping and I will repeat this again. But for tonight, if you do have questions, if you can place them in the Q&A. If you're not familiar with Zoom, if you take your cursor and put it towards the bottom of your screen, you will see the Q&A. And if you can place that there, that will be great. Those of you out in the audience, you will see any answers that are shared. I will not be typing those. We have Terry and Michael behind the scenes, and we are going to do our absolute best to get to questions that may come in through the Q&A. But we also had a variety of questions that came in through registration. And we are going to do our best to get to those. We'll give it one more minute for people to enter here. To give a little layout for the evening, in just a moment, but not yet, we are going to do a quick door prize. And we're going to have 4 door prizes. And obviously I will be introducing our speakers, but I want to hold off on that until we have everybody in here. But we are doing door prizes because who doesn't love a door prize, right? And it should be fun for adults. I'm on Zooms a lot with kids. Your kids are on Zooms, you're on Zooms and Google Meets and so forth. And it's about time you all have fun, because you know what we're talking about, parenting under pressure, or the pressure of parenting. So we will do that shortly, and then I will introduce you to our speakers. We will watch a quick little video to set the tone for the evening, and then we'll have a round table with questions and conversations. And like I said, I'm going to do my absolute best to get all these questions in, and if we are unable to get to some questions, I know that our speakers, LeNaya and Dr. Jannot, will be happy to answer them after the fact via email. All right, so my name is Marnie Grodson, and I am sitting here with you this evening as a member of the leadership team under Decatur Parents Network. If you're not familiar with Decatur Parents Network, we are a group of parents with City of Decatur schools. We welcome all parents, as well as those who live in the community. You can be friends of Decatur Parents Network. And DPN falls under the PTSA at Decatur High School. So they help with some funding. And so we thank them for making this opportunity happen tonight, as well as Decatur Prevention Initiative, as we are using their Zoom platform, and they have helped support the prizes for the door prizes. And last piece of information I'll share is for those of you who just stepped on, any questions that you might have, please, please, please put them in the Q&A, and we will do our best to get to them. So without further ado, we are going to do 1 door prize, actually 2, and then we're going to move on and meet our speakers. So trying to make it a little bit fun, we've got this wheel of names, and my good friend Michael's behind the scenes. I hope you all love the beautiful colors, and we're going to see whose name comes up. And it looks like Julie. Julie, are you with us? Because you have to be here in order to receive your prize. And I know not everyone signed on. So if we don't hear from you within the chat, Michael will spin the wheel again. Jeannine. And I think what we may do, if Jeannine's not here, maybe we'll do 2 more spins and maybe save them towards the end. Rebecca, because I know it's possible some people could be coming in late. And who do we have? Kimberly R. Are you here? And I didn't mention what the door prizes are this evening. We have decided to support our local bookstores. Oh my goodness, Kimberly's here. So Kimberly, you, since you are here, you will have a choice of a $15 gift card to Brave and Kind Bookstore, or to Little Shops of Stories, or to Caris. Caris, I always pronounce it incorrectly, I apologize. So we will talk to you offline about that. So congratulations. All right, and we'll get to the other door prizes later on. So we have with us tonight 2 special guests, and honestly, I couldn't think of 2 better human beings and qualified people to join us to address what it's like to be parenting during this time and the pressure not only that always exists, but especially with how life has changed. So to make it simple, I am going to introduce them by name and let them tell a little bit about themselves. And then we will go into our quick movie and then begin the conversation. So Dr. Jeannine Jannot, do you mind sharing with us what you do on a daily basis with your career?
I do not. First of all, thanks for having me. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for all of us to have a really great, much needed conversation. So I'm Jeannine Jannot. I own a business, The Balanced Student, where I do student and parent coaching. I'm the author of The Disintegrating Student, Super Smart and Falling Apart. I teach college. I'm very invested in having the conversation about how to help our kids in the high stakes achievement culture that we're currently living in. And it's become obviously more complicated with the pandemic. So I'm just really excited to be here and talk this out with you guys.
Thank you so much. And then LeNaya, please share about you.
Yes, well, good evening, everyone. My name is LeNaya Smith Crawford. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, a registered play therapist, as well as a holistic wellness expert. And so I work with children and families on a variety of issues, but really concerning anxiety, connection, and confidence. And so I'm really happy to be here sharing space with all of you this evening and can't wait to talk some more.
Thank you. So I hope you all agree that we've got some great experts here. Let's do one more thing before showing the video. I would like to put up a poll. I believe it's 2 or 3 questions. It is anonymous, but if you could please answer them, we will see where everyone's sitting tonight in their level of stress, and then curious as to how you've been coping with the stress in your life. And we'll either see the results as they're happening, or they might come along in the chat. While we're waiting for that, let me just set up this video we are going to show. Some of you may have seen this circulating. I think it was the beginning of summer. Really, it could be any time. It's hard to keep track of time these days, but it's called Numb. It's about 3 minutes, and I chose this, or we chose this, those of us who helped organize this evening, as I think it gives a picture as to what our kids have gone through, and I think what adults and parents are feeling now as well. And after this video, we will then go into our discussion, our Q&A roundtable. So I'm not sure if we're going to see, oh, here we go, here we go. So current level of stress. high was number 5. So we have more people in the higher level of stress for sure. And this is what I was curious about, coping strategies, what people are doing. So we've got some people exercising, a good percentage, mental health support, social distance activities. I know that's been a struggle for adults as well as kids, virtual social activity connection, family rituals, occasional alcohol drink, and I have no idea. And there are days I can feel that as well. So thank you for sharing. I thought it would be important for us to kind of see where everyone is at. And the plan is to address some of those things this evening. So without further ado, we will watch this video and then move on to our conversation. All right. So I don't know about you out in the audience, but that to me is a very powerful video. And I know shared this with Dr. Jannot and LeNaya prior to this. And I think it just sets the stage as to seeing the stress that we know is happening in our kids, within ourselves, within our homes, and the community. So I want to make sure we stay on task tonight and we get all of your questions answered that you submitted, but in addition, any that may come up this evening. So I'm going to have this be a little bit formal than what I'm used to. I tend to work a little bit organically, but we want this to be a conversation once I ask the question. So the conversation will flow. And so what I will start out first is let's focus on the parenting. Okay, let's focus on you out there, because I found it interesting. A lot of the questions that came in were about your children. And I'm a parent. I know that, when our kids are feeling well and we're not stressed about how they're stressed, that does help us. But we want to, as best as we can, focus on you tonight and what are some things that you can do. So let's focus on parenting first. We will get to some of those questions that you've asked about your kids. So this is leading into what somebody asked. Parents, and often women, are told to put on their oxygen masks first in order for them to be available to support their family, to support their children. The following question comes from an attendee, as I mentioned. How do you balance keeping everyone in the home connected without being too connected? And then there's an additional question here. And then how do you balance supporting and nurturing your family while still creating time for yourself and your needs? LeNaya,
Yes.
thoughts?
Yes. I mean, first, can we just say how powerful that video was? I mean, just putting us in the perspective of the child. So I just wanted to say that first. I think it is definitely challenging to balance feeling connected, but also having your alone time, particularly in the state of the world. But what I find to be helpful is scheduling those things. Oftentimes, I think that or what I've seen is that parents are wary of scheduling things like fun or rest time or break time because there's a school schedule. However, if your kids know and you know at 7 o'clock, that's the time where everyone goes to their separate spaces, they practice their deep breathing, they color, they do whatever makes them feel good. We all know that we have an hour out of each day for ourselves. And when your kids are involved in doing something that they enjoy, that's a great chance for you as a parent to take your break as well. Because what I find is parents want to do work while their kids are entertained, but where's the time for the break? I mean, y'all are working jobs, you are being parents, you're holding the fort down. And so I think parents need to be intentional about carving out time for themselves, particularly when their kids are entertained doing something. And so to that same point, finding time to schedule, time to be connected. And so it doesn't have to be super thought out. It could just be going outside for a walk. Maybe it's playing a game that you all used to play when your kid was younger, finding some nostalgia, or just asking your kid what would they like to do today? What's something new within the realm of COVID-19 that they'd like to try? So that would be my suggestions for parents out there.
Dr. Jannot.
So I think that's amazing advice. I would just maybe take it one step further and say, parenting is really, really hard. Parenting in a pandemic feels almost impossible on some days. So, I think, we need respect, especially as our kids get older. I'm hearing a lot of stuff about kids being, wanting to get away and not wanting to be connected. So I think there's a lot of conversations, and communication is a big piece of this. But as the adults in the house, sometimes we, especially if our kids are there all the time, we're going to have that inclination to help and alleviate their stress and be on top of stuff and problem solve, following that parental instinct. And one of the things I'm hearing from a lot of students and even from parents is that it's too much, because you can see everybody and you know what everybody's doing. And so parents may be over invested in what's going on with school with their kids. So that makes the connection uncomfortable. So the child is trying to avoid that. So I would just be sort of mindful that, because we're seeing it and because we're right there and because we're worried about it, and the way we get rid of something we're worried about is we say something. And we feel better, but then we've kind of offloaded our fear onto our child. So just being really mindful not to talk about school all the time, because it can just be a really easy, kind of a slippery slope when we're right there with everybody.
I can relate to that. Yes. Yeah. And I think for all of us, right, we're under each other's nose and we see what's going on. I know, Dr. Jannot, I had shared with you when we spoke on the phone, and LeNaya, I think you know this, that Decatur schools are virtual. So I know some areas there's hybrid. And as far as we know, we're virtual through January 5th, and it will be reevaluated. So this has been quite some time that everyone's home. Parents are working, you know, we've got different age kids, we're, you know, on the computer. What are thoughts of how to take that chunk of time, let's just say, you know, 9 to 4-ish, how can that time be worked to accomplish what everybody needs to do within the house? And even, I mean, in my house, my office is underneath my stairs because that's the only space that I get. I don't even go in there anymore. But not everybody has space. And so you have this family. What are suggestions? And that kind of goes to the connection. Like with people you've been seeing and working with, what advice can you give as far as setting boundaries throughout the day?
Yeah, so I think similar to what I was saying before, as far as like scheduling time to be away, I think setting the expectation too. So having the parents talk to their kids. One of the things I find often is that parents don't communicate how they're feeling with their children out of some sort of fear that it'll impact them. But what I find is that when parents are open and talk about their feelings, it normalizes those feelings for the kids. And so I would encourage the parents or encourage you parents, I forgot I'm talking to y'all, encourage you to be open and talk to your kids about how you're feeling, you know, let them know that you need a little space. One of the things that I have done recently with some of my families is created code words. So when a child is feeling a little overwhelmed or feels like they need more space from a parent or might need some more connection, there are 2 different code words that they use. So not too much words are needed. They use that code word and the parent and the child know exactly what to do. And so that would be a suggestion for boundaries. You don't have to overtalk it, just do some cool code, sign language, whatever you want to do, just so that you all can communicate those boundaries in a simple and possibly fun way.
I like that suggestion. I'm assuming that you guys have probably had people, families, individuals come in that may not be using the healthiest coping strategies and may be at a loss as to what to do. I also know in my experience, I was talking to someone that they're an artist and they just said, I can't do it because I can't set myself up. I don't have, 2 hours to sit there. And so sometimes, I know we have to reevaluate. So it might be, chunks of time. So for those who are out there, what are you seeing that has not been helpful? And then what can we tell parents that you guys have seen it has worked?
So, I feel like this comes from a place of burnout. I think, we've been doing this for so long and we're emotionally exhausted. And, as parents, we just keep pushing through and pushing through and it's a lot. But what we have to kind of keep in mind is that our kids are watching us. So if we are, we have patterns of behaving when we are stressed out. And sometimes we just take the bull by the horns and we get in control and we're fixing things and we're the problem solver and we're all energized about it. And we just have to be doing about the problem. And then other times, or other people, it kind of depends. You can kind of, roller coaster around here, or you can be sort of one way or the other. But, some people will go more in that withdrawal mode, kind of feeling helpless and a little bit hopeless. Sort of let everybody else take care of things. It's just like you kind of shut down. And personally, I've been on the roller coaster. So I'll have days where I'm just all jacked up about whatever. And then other days where I'm like, just I can't even talk about it. So I think it's really important to recognize how we're dealing with our emotions, and remember that emotions, have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if we're not processing through all of our emotions, that's where we get stuck and we burn out. So all those wonderful things that you did in your survey to ask how people are dealing with their stress, those are some of the things that actually help us work through our emotions: deep breathing, exercise, a good cry, laughing, socializing, connection, affection. Those things help us move through our emotions. And when we're doing that as adults, we are doing a huge favor to our kids, because we can show up as our best parenting self more often than not. And we're modeling to them how we're handling stress and how we're coping. So kind of taking stock of how we're doing it, that is what they're seeing, and that is what, we're conveying to them, and what they will probably do when they're trying to deal with their stress.
So when you're saying moving through emotions, like allowing us, like as parents, individuals, to feel what we feel and not stuff it down, acknowledge it, feel it, and it's okay for our kids to see it.
We absolutely have to do that. And we should be honest with our kids, developmentally appropriate, but to let them know when we're feeling, like this is a lot right now and I need to take a minute. That's so important, because what you're showing them is it's okay. You don't have to be quote unquote perfect. You don't have to handle this. You don't have to put up a stiff upper lip. You don't have to, that comparison of, well, it's bad, but it's not as bad as so-and-so. We all have our own emotions and we get to own those. So, it's really a hard thing to do. And a lot of us, aren't necessarily good at this, especially for an extended period of time. We're going through emotional upheaval. It's not temporary. This has been a long time. So it's actually an awesome opportunity for all of us to, work on our well-being and work on our personal growth, and be showing our kids how to do it.
Yeah.
LeNaya.
Yeah, I think that what's been really helpful for a lot of people is, one, honoring the fact that life as we know it is different. I mean, it's been it feels like it's been 3 years, y'all. It feels like it's been forever since life has been normal. But what has been helpful for me and a lot of my clients is to acknowledge where you are and understand your bandwidth of things pre-pandemic is not going to be your bandwidth during the pandemic. So if you were able to, sit at your computer for 7 hours, cook dinner, have all the laundry done, be in bed by 9 p.m. before the pandemic, that's likely not happening now. Yeah. And so another thing too is a perspective shift. I think so many of us are just waiting to get back to normal, that being in this moment can only be filled with dread, worry, and anxiety, because we're really looking forward to things going back to normal. So if we can shift the perspective to acknowledge, like, hey, this is where we're at, and we don't know when we're going to go back to normal. So how can we create our new normal? I think, when numbers went down and people were hopeful that we could go back to being in person and so on and so forth. But as the numbers started to come back up, things started to go back to what it was like when we first shut down. So I definitely would just, encourage all of you to shift your perspective. Don't be in such a rush for things to go back to normal. Find a way to create new ways of being, new rituals, new scheduling, just new things, so that if this lasts as long as it lasts, at least you've cultivated something new and something different that works for you and your family.
You both of you talking made me think of, I mean, we never have 100% control of anything, right? And we're not guaranteeing anything except for what's going on right now. And what I hear is, I mean, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And so sometimes being able to have some sense of control or agency or some say can be helpful, I would think, in this situation, right?
Yes. So what I say all the time is the greatest level of anxiety resides in the areas we have the least amount of control in. And so that's what the pandemic has done. It's shown us that we have way less control over things than we thought we had. And so a quick thing that I would like to leave with the parents is I'd like for you to, when you get home or when you have time, make a list of all the things that are causing you stress, worry, and anxiety, and then divide the list up into things that you can control versus things that you can't, and really focus on the things you can't control, because those are the things that are probably causing you the most stress. And so you simply have to accept that you have no control over those situations, let it go, and then begin to focus on the things you do have control over. I will also say that sounds super simple, y'all, but it is very, 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 very hard to acknowledge that you have no control over something and let it go. So that's just a quick little activity I would encourage y'all to do at home. Just take inventory of what is causing you that stress and anxiety and what you actually don't have any control over. Hopefully I answered your question, Marty.
No, you did. You did. Do you have any thoughts, Dr. Jannot?
So because I work mostly with middle school, high school, and college students, control is everything. And one of the biggest issues that they struggle with is they feel like they have no control, no autonomy in their life. And when you look at this from a parent's perspective, parents, for decades now, we've been sort of in control, with helicopter parenting, if you will, that kind of we're there, we're monitoring, we're helping. One of the things is, particularly as your kids hit that, teen phase, middle school onward, we aren't in control of the things we want to be in control of with our kids. So on the list, you want them to get good grades, you want them to have friends, you want them to be able to do their things, you want them to go to prom, you want all these things, rightly so, but you're not in control of them. And here's what your kids are in control of. They're in control of their eating, they're in control of their movement, they're in control of their sleep, and they're in control of their academics. There is nothing, as a parent, we can support and we can do all kinds of things, but ultimately they are in control of that. And when they feel low control, and often that's because we have kind of swooped in and taken control from them, they will start controlling those things, even to their own detriment. And I think, any parent who has a tween or teen has probably seen this happen once or twice. So it's just something to be aware of. Control is a tricky thing, and I'm a high control. I love control. So I keep sticky notes, around to remind myself it's not about me, and because it's really hard, and it's a moment by moment. It's not like you watch this webinar and you're like, oh, good, got that. This is gonna be fine. No, this is hard. This is hard.
So then it takes the pressure off of you as a parent in a way. There's only so much you can do and only so much that is your job or role. Is that right? What you're saying?
When we're doing them a favor by letting them have that control. We as a generation of parents for the last several decades have been so afraid to let our kids fail. And we have done everything that we can to make sure it's kind of smooth sailing for them. Our tolerance is just really low for discomfort in this area. But this is what our kids need. I see these high achieving kids that go off to college. So they did great in high school. They checked all the boxes. They did all the things they were supposed to do. They go off to college and they completely fall apart because those supports aren't there in the way that they're used to. And all of a sudden, a roommate who leaves their clothes on the floor causes, a visit to the clinic because they can't handle it. It's not doing them any favors. So for our own parental short-term comfort, we are costing them their long-term growth. So it's better to do it now, to be uncomfortable now and let this process, let them have more control, let them deal with the consequences, be there, be warm and supportive, because that's the most important thing and the most protective thing we can do for our kids. But beyond that, we just have to take some deep breaths.
There's two questions I want to go to because I could go either way here. So let's go off the way it's kind of heading. So speaking of children, and I'm like right here, it's like, okay, not too much children because this is about parents, but it's all connected because I'm a parent and I tend to want to go off because, it goes to that saying, whether it's true or not. And this is what I'm curious what you have to say about this. what is your view on the phrase we often hear, you're only as happy as your least happy child? The floor is open. Is there truth in that? What do you think? I don't know.
I say, yeah. I mean, we love our kids. We hate to see our kids unhappy. I mean, but again, it kind of goes back to what I just said of if we can't tolerate their disappointments, their heartbreaks, their frustration as parents, you know, if we need to go to the car and cry or go in our closet or wherever we hide to process our emotions all the way through, whatever we need to do, that's what we need to do, because we need to let them see they can survive challenging times and difficult times and being unhappy. But I don't know how you avoid, you know, taking that on, you know, onboarding some of their unhappiness.
Yeah.
LeNaya, you have a trick for that?
Yeah, I think my perspective is a little different. And I will preface this by saying that I am not a parent. I work a lot with parents, but I am not one myself. I think that saying kind of, what's the word? It contributes to the idea that, what is the word? Like when our kids succeed, we succeed. When our kids are happy, we are happy. So our life, our emotions, our actions are dictated by our children. I come from the perspective where I feel like that could be a detriment. I think that's one of the reasons why when kids go off to college, marriages start to fail, right? Or kids go off to college and I don't know who I am without my kids. So I think that you are not in control of your child's emotions, right? Because you could provide them everything that they say that they want, and they still could have a void, or they could still be feeling a certain type of way. I think it's important to make sure your kids have everything they need. I think it's important that you make sure you have the most nurturing environment. You're communicating your feelings, you're validating their feelings, you're making sure they feel loved and heard. But I also think it's important to remember that you are a person. And again, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I think from a therapeutic perspective, you're a person first, right? So you were you first, you were you before you were a parent. And so everything you do, if every emotion you have is tied up in your child, what happens when your child goes off to college or goes off and moves or gets married? Your identity is then lost. So I am from maybe the unpopular opinion that no, you're not as happy as your unhappiest child. You're as happy as you want to be while creating and cultivating an environment of love and acceptance for your children.
It just made me think of like, we're, as parents, we are supposed to hold space, safe space for our kids and provide, right? Obviously, we've got the helicopter, lawnmower, bulldozer, you know, snowplow, parents, all of that. So there's an extreme there. But as parents, like, how do we hold space for our child if they're, you know, I don't like the word happy, but if things are going on, how do we hold space if we're not taking care of ourselves, right? So it kind of goes back.
Exactly.
Why we I kind of want to keep bringing it back to the parents, because, you know, if we're empty and depleted and something goes wrong, you know, in our child's life, it could be something so small, right? But it is big and blows up in their world. We're empty, man, that can, you know, just take every little ounce of out of our cup. The other question that I wanted to go to is about resilience. And so, you know, we know challenging times, we can get stretched. Some of us can fall apart. Some of us can learn from it. And so from a parenting perspective, I know there's a lot of worry for those whose kids didn't have prom and graduations, you know, those kids who aren't able to go to their sports, or, you know, whatever losses there are. I know I see it. And I think actually, Dr. Jannot, I listened to a podcast that you were in, and I think you had mentioned something along the lines of, oftentimes kids can take the cues in what we're saying, and we're talking about these losses that really ends up being more about how bad we feel as parents. And they're actually, I mean, they're sad, but they're actually okay with it, but we can make it worse by talking about it. So here's the question. So we know challenges allow us as humans to adapt, thrive, and grow. So what can grade school age kids learn from living through this time? And LeNaya, I kind of go to you for that. I know you work with all ages. And then I'm curious about the college teenager group of people. So what do you see? Because I think it gives us hope when we can see the bigger picture, what we can gain from this time. What can kids learn from this time that we're going through?
I think that they can learn a sense of gratitude for the things we often take for granted. So yes, you know, and I say all of this to say, of course, you always want to validate and acknowledge when your child is feeling what they're feeling. And lots of kids miss their friends. Lots of kids miss hugging their teacher. Lots of kids miss the in-person. But I think it's a good opportunity for parents to really cultivate a sense of gratitude in the things we often forget because we were so busy. So the fact that we're alive, the fact that we're a family and we have a roof over our heads, the fact that we can still be creative and use our imagination. I think that I actually want to touch on that because I'm reminded of a couple of my younger clients who, and mind you, they're like between the ages of 5 and 8. They all have told me, you know, Miss LeNaya, I feel like I need TV to inspire me. I feel like I need to watch a movie because my imagination is just not working the way it was before I've been stuck at home, which was a huge like red flag to me, where it's like our kids are so used to being on the screen that they forgot what it's like to use their imagination. So I would just say those two things: cultivate a sense of gratitude for the things that you have, but also tap into your kids' creativity and imagination. I know it's tough as parents, you know, the TV is an easy thing to go to, but I'm finding a lot of kids are missing out on a sense of creativity and imagination in this time. And hopefully I answered your question, because sometimes I go off on a tangent.
I can understand that. I can do it too.
Yeah.
So we were talking about resiliency. And so tapping into like what we can learn. So getting back to that creativity and fostering that.
Yes, fostering that creativity and fostering that sense of gratitude. And what I have parents do now is at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, they check in and say, well, what are you thankful for today? Like, what are you really excited for about your day? Because we often, since we've been in this pandemic for what feels like forever, we usually tend to start the day with, oh, man, I miss seeing my friends. Oh, I gotta get on another Zoom call, or man, art class isn't the same because I don't get to, you know, throw a crayon at my friend. So I think that's what I mean when I say cultivate that sense of gratitude. What are you thankful for today? What do you get to do? What are you excited about today? So it's about shifting that perspective to continue to foster that resilience.
Gotcha. Dr. Jannot.
Yeah, so for the older kids, this is a huge, it's actually, I look at it, I'm reframing it, which I think is really helpful when we're dealing with the pandemic, to try to reframe all of these obstacles and challenges that come our way in the most positive way we can, because that can let us be more resilient in the moment. So I am in reframing what's happening to our high school and college students. I think right now we're in the really messy middle, and we're kind of like the sausage being made ourselves. So it's really uncomfortable right now. But my hope and my guess is that years from now and down the road, this is going to be a life-altering experience for our young people in a really positive way. Because for generations, we've been raising not very resilient kids. We've been raising young kids. So, you know, 18-year-olds that are more like 15-year-olds, 15-year-olds that are more like 13-year-olds. And this is giving, it's kind of forcing us to help our kids understand what it even means to be resilient. And so I think that is just an amazing opportunity to tell our kids, this is a challenge. You can figure out a way to work through it. And so many of our kids shy away from challenges. They try to, they'll self-sabotage to avoid, you know, you hear all the, I've got social anxiety. I mean, I think almost every student I work with tells me I have social anxiety. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you don't. I think your generation just isn't comfortable in the uncomfortable, in the challenging situations. So, you know, I wrote a thing in one of my newsletters recently about how awkward this is for everybody. And, you know, to making sure that our students know everything about this is awkward. So it's not just you when you go back into school or when you go do something in this strange environment we're living in. We're all feeling that way. And I think that's just really eye-opening for our kids. But that is not at all to mitigate how challenging it is, A, to watch it as a parent, and B, to go through it right now. But I do think it's going to be worth it in the long run. I think it will benefit them.
I'm going to ask this question because I think it's there's probably people out there who have this question, whether they're on here or watching it down the road. Dr. Jannot, I asked this because I know you work with college students, and when you said like we're all in this together, like we're all having to go through this, and it's awkward, and this is new to all of us. And so I hear a lot, you know, we've got juniors and seniors who are trying to take their next steps and apply to school, and you know, AP classes, and a lot of things have changed in school. You know, juniors who might be taking visits typically, and this fear that I hear from parents, how is my teenager going to be successful, be able to go to school, get accepted if, you know, they're not in class in person, or, you know, their grades aren't as great as they used to be. And I guess, is there any advice, or in your experience, what you're seeing, you know, what that looks like?
So I'm seeing a lot of clients, a lot of student clients in this situation, and my own daughter. My youngest is a senior this year, so I'm living it up close and personal. And it's hard. There's a lot about it that feels like it's not fair. But what I would say is, again, we want to make sure that as parents, it's not about us, you know, as much as possible. So I saw this last year with proms being canceled, where everybody was really upset about proms being canceled. And, you know, the clients, the students were telling me, and, you know, I was seeing on social media how upset parents were. The thing was that the students actually kind of worked their way through it and kind of moved on. Whereas months later, the parents were still trying to fix that for them and make it happen, which I thought was really interesting, because I felt like that maybe had more to do with a parent need than the child need. So I think, you know, keeping that kind of thing in mind, along with the idea, it's not just your kid, it's not just my senior, it's all of them. This is worldwide. So I talk about reframing. Everything's going to be adjusted. This is going to change the college admissions process. This is going to change testing. This is going to change, you know, we're going to look at the child more holistically, which, thank goodness, and it's about time. This is good thing. So again, we're the sausage being made, but I think in the long run, there's going to be some really positive things that come out of it. So, you know, I do get worried when I hear students or parents fretting about, you know, making sure they get that one more ACT in, or, you know, checking the boxes, that I don't think we need to be as concerned about checking those boxes right now. And checking boxes has never really worked out well for us historically. And we've been paying a price for that. So you know, I think we all need some reassurance that let's just do what we can, what's right for our child, what's right for our situation. And in the long run, it is all going to work out the way it needs to.
Kind of springing off of that, so thinking of that college age, and also kids, this kind of leads into one of the questions that came, but focusing on college kids to begin with, when we talk about socialization and being able to connect, you know, not be in isolation. You know, there's a lot of students that are away at school, and there's some that are, you know, back at home, and depending upon home rules of how they're, you know, handling, you know, COVID precautions. there's factors there. And then LeNaya, obviously, like the younger kids. So the question is, how do you help your child foster relationships and cope with isolation during this time? I feel like that's a big question.
Yeah. Well, I can go. So I think that it's really important, especially in this time, to get creative. I'll share what some of the parents I work with have done to make sure their kid is not feeling so isolated. So parents have gotten together with other families with children around the same age, and they've quarantined themselves at the same time so that their kid can have in-person interactions with someone else. Because I mean, I did write an article about socializing in a virtual world for the HuffPost not too long ago, but let's be honest, in-person connection, there's nothing to replace it. Similar to, I'm not going to go there, but anyway, you can't replace in-person interaction. So I think we're at a spot in the pandemic where I would encourage families to get creative and find maybe at least one other family who is willing to quarantine or go take a COVID test. Everyone knows that they're COVID free, and then get together and have some play dates. Because it's been a long road. It's been a very long road, and we don't know how much longer we have. So I would offer that, like, see how creative you can get to mitigate the isolation.
And I would say with the college students, so my other daughter is a senior college student getting ready to graduate in December, and she's been home since March. So again, that's a real, my heart goes out to these young adults, because this goes against everything in their DNA. Staying away from other people. It's extremely hard for them. So but I do feel like, especially if they're living in your home with you, that, as parents, we have to be flexible in our parenting, which sometimes we forget to transition with our kids to their next phase of development. You go from baby to toddler, which you kind of get that, and then you go toddler to kid. But sometimes we're treating our middle schoolers and our teenagers more like little kids. We forget to transition with them. Mm-hmm. And we do that again when they become young adults. So making sure that we are remembering that they need independence. They should have independence. They need to be making their own decisions. They don't need to be checking with you for everything, but having some ground rules and having an understanding of, how we're going to respect each other. And, with the COVID, that's personal to every family, but, everybody, what I've seen is the risk tolerance levels of people varies, so for some families, it's not a huge concern, but for other families, it's a really big deal. And if you have conflict within a family over that, that's even more challenging. But, they need their connection. So I'm seeing a lot of creativity there with Zoom meetings or FaceTime, lots of gaming where they can be with friends. Some of these, like you were describing, LeNaya, some pods of, these are my people. These are my people that I know are taking it seriously, and we get together and play D&D, or we get together and, just have a night together. So anything that they can do, I think it's hugely important. It's hugely important for their mental health.
So that's interesting. Because what I hear often, and I know it's a struggle, the kids here in Decatur are on the screens all day for school, essentially. I mean, there's synchronous and asynchronous, but it's a lot of screen time. So there's a lot of talk that parents are looking for things outside of screen time. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, I mean, I have this in my experience. I'm curious with the both of you, what your thoughts are. I've experienced a lot of positive ways to engage kids and groups of kids through screens. Granted, we're not touching, but there's a lot of activities that can happen. In fact, my son's off in Chicago at school, and we co-work together. Like some days because they're pretty much quarantined in their rooms for the most part. So he's on my phone, I'm doing my work, he's doing his work. I might be looking up at the ceiling, but there's still like that sense of connection. And I know like kids are doing that too. Like they'll sit there and like a girl might be doing her nails, somebody might be doing something, they're not even talking, but there's just this sense, you know, that people are around. Um, so this kind of leads into that. And I know we're getting short on time. Let me just say to those of you who are out there live right now, not watching recording, I don't think we're going to be able to get to, I think there's been a couple questions in the Q&A. So we'll follow up with those and make sure those do get answered. But I'm going to ask just a couple more questions, and then we will do our little door prizes. And then we really have a survey that we would, no, not a survey, it's a poll. So we'd like you to stay on to take that, because we are asking about what else you would like to see in the next coming months. So it could follow and be more of this or more specific. It might be other topics. I do know, I wanted to bring this up in talking about college students. It made me think of this. I know statistics wise, drinking alcohol rates have gone up. I have a statistic here from the RAND American Life Panel. When they compare spring 2020 to 2019, this was a bit alarming. Consumption of alcohol increased by 14%. Adults ages 30 to 59 stated their frequency of alcohol consumption increased by 19%. And if we look at women, that is gone up by 17%. And this is the one that really stands out to me. It also makes not only parents, but I think about college kids, you know, isolating high school kids, you know, they're not the only ones. But when it comes to women, women reported a 41% increase in heavy drinking days, which means 4 more drinks in a couple of hours. Is this something that you have talked about or experienced with your clients, concerns? I would say no, based on your reaction.
I mean, mostly I'm working with, so the college students, it's really not come up as an issue, and not that I've heard of in my middle school and high school clients, fortunately. But I have, you know, sort of anecdotal, and I've been reading some articles too about, you know, in us parents, that it might be certainly an issue.
Yeah. But I think also too, the poll that we did at the beginning of this talk, having more drinks was the #1 way that everyone here was coping with the time. So I think that it's very relevant. My work with young people, it's alcohol, it's recreational use of other types of substances. People are just trying to cope the best way they can or the easiest way they know how. So I think it's telling too, just the poll that we took not too long ago.
Yeah. So I guess the messaging too is important. Just like you were saying, kids are watching us and how we respond and we act and how we deal with our emotions. They're going to see that. So obviously they're going to see our coping skills as well. Like
exactly,
we go to what we do. One more question, because this came in more than once. What are the signs that a child should see a therapist? And then I'm going to add on top of that, when does a parent know that maybe they need to take another step further and go get additional help out of what they've been maybe trying to do at home?
I think that in this day and like in this time, everyone should be in therapy. I mean, I am an advocate for therapy, not just because I'm a therapist, but because as a therapist, I'm in therapy. We're all my family's in therapy. We see the benefit in having someone there to guide you along your journey. And I mean, anxiety levels, depression levels, trauma levels are at an all-time high. And so I don't know a person in this world or a person in this country that would not benefit from therapy, particularly at this time. But as far as signs go, if you notice that your child or your kid is acting out, more, if you're noticing that they're expressing their emotions with less words and more physical, they're isolating themselves, you might see grades dropping, you might just see them just not really being themselves. I think parents describe it almost like there's a fog. That's what I've been hearing. There's a fog there. My child isn't themselves. So I think those are a few signs that it's time for your child to see a therapist.
And I had some students tell me that, you know, they asked for the help. And I've had parents contact me and just say they came to me. So if, and I've also heard stories of, you know, children going to their parents saying they wanted to get help and be told, no, we're not going to do that. So I would say if a child comes to you and says, I think I need to talk to somebody, or I really feel depressed, or whatever words they use that suggests they're asking for help, I would certainly try to get them some help. You know, with the older kids too, you know, any signs of self-harm or substance use, any talk of suicide, of course, should be dealt with immediately and seriously. And a lot of our kids too, particularly younger kids, might have a lot of physical complaints. So they might all of a sudden start having lots of stomach aches or stomach issues, headaches. You know, in our teenagers, a lot of times the anxiety, the depression will look more like irritability or anger or aggression. So it is more, like LeNaya said, more of the acting out, not necessarily I can't get out of bed kind of depression. So really, you know, if anything happens that it's just, you know, remarkably different from how they typically behave, it's certainly worth kind of paying attention to.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you. I feel like I'm just cutting it off because I know we could still have conversation. I do want to add, for those of you who are out there or watching this recorded version, on Decatur Parents Network, we will have resources. We will have links to Dr. Jannot's website, as well as LeNaya's. And I know they both have great information. And one thing I do want to point out, for those who are watching and kids are in city schools of Decatur, we also do have the student center at the high school. And there is one that has begun this year in middle school. But additionally, in all the schools, there are resources with the school counselors. And there's a variety of groups that are going on. I think I just saw them come out today. So you can always reach out to see what's going on at the school. And I guess just adding on to that, you can also find therapists, right, who are seeing clients virtually. I know that like some are doing in person, but there's also therapeutic groups, right? Like
Yep.
with socialization, which I just want to ask really quick. And then we're going to do the poll and door prizes, but this was a question about socialization and connection. LeNaya, I know you've always done social skills groups. Is that something you're continuing to do?
Yes. So our practice, Kaleidoscope Family Therapy, we have several social skills groups going on right now, ranging from ages 5 to 16. We also have teen process groups. So your high school students, if they need to vent and just let it out, they need to process it with some peers and a therapist. We have those groups going on now, and I'll be sure to share that with you for the website.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Please stay on and hang on here. I would love for you to take this poll that will come up because we really want to know how we can support you here in the future. And here we go. I think it's coming up. Oh, I guess we're going to door prizes. Maybe the poll already happened. Okay, so spin that wheel. Kira. Is Kira in the chat? Someone will have to let me know. Oh, she is here. Okay, Kira, your choices are Brave and Kind, gift card, Karis book, oh my goodness, gift card, Karis, oh my gosh, I feel horrible. And what I did not mention before is we are also going to give away a book. Oh, can't quite see it, but Dr. Jannot has a book. I've read it many times. It's why it's kind of a little bit tattered, called The Disintegrating Student, super smart and falling apart. Very much of what we've talked about today with the older kids. So you can let us know. Okay, and another, next, we are going to give another door prize. I think we have 2 more to go.
And Marnie, our poll did not happen.
Oh, okay. Is it not working, or are we still going to have it?
Yes, 17 people have responded to the poll. It's live currently.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have Dina? She is here.
All right.
All right. And we'll go one more. We'll get in contact with you about the prizes. So one more, please, Michael. Carol. Is Carol here?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah, she's here.
Oh, she's here. Okay, so all of our door prizes have been given away. We will email you the specifics. And we thank you for being here with us. Thank you for those who are taking the poll. If you want to get in touch with Decatur Parent Network, go to our website. It's actually new and improved and beautiful, and you can always submit thoughts and questions there. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you found this helpful and you have a few good things to take with you. And thank you, Dr. Jannot and LeNaya, for joining us. I know after a long work day, it can be hard to still be awake at night.
Thanks for having me.